Evan, let's define terms first. By decriminalization, I mean removing criminal penalties for personal possession and use, while supply, manufacture and trafficking remains illegal. The point is to treat addiction primarily as a health issue, not a crime. When you stop branding users as criminals, you lower barriers to treatment, reduce overdose deaths through honest contact with services, and free police and courts to focus on violent crime and major dealers. Noah, I'm fine with definitions, but the leap from stop jailing users to outcomes improve isn't automatic. Decriminalization can send a cultural signal that high-risk drugs are not that serious, which may increase experimentation. And if you don't simultaneously expand treatment, housing, and accountability, you risk normalizing public drug use, street disorder, and overdose clusters. I'm not arguing for mass incarceration. I'm arguing that the how matters more than the label. Evan, sure, the implementation is the policy. But the current criminal model fails on its own terms. Criminal records for possession damage employability and housing prospects, which worsens the social conditions that perpetuate addiction and recidivism. Police time gets burned on arrests that don't dent supply. Courts churn cases with little leverage to change behavior. Health outcomes. We get stigma and avoidance of care. Decriminalization with robust services, low-threshold treatment, medication-assisted therapy, harm reduction centers, reverses those incentives. Noah, you're combining decriminalization with a generous, expensive service bundle. Most places don't fund that bundle at scale. Without it, decriminalization can become a promise the system can't keep. More visible use, same or higher overdose rates, minimal treatment uptake, frustrated residents, and a political backlash that rolls back reforms. If we're serious, we need statutory triggers, decriminalization only after treatment slots, detox capacity, and outreach staffing hit defined thresholds, and we maintain them. Evan, agreed, make it conditional and measurable. Tie the policy to service capacity, overdose outreach teams, and real-time monitoring, overdoses, service uptake, wait times, street disorder, property crime, and perceptions of safety. If metrics slide, adjust quickly, tighten public use rules, expand outreach shifts, add contingency funds. Decriminalization isn't a switch, it's an operating regime with feedback loops. Noah, another worry is the free rider problem. If personal possession has no criminal consequence, what lever gets someone with severe use disorder to accept treatment? Many people aren't ready when outreach meets them. Courts, for all their flaws, provide some external pressure. Take that away and you may reduce one of the few structured touchpoints that moves reluctant users toward care. Evan, you can still build non-carceral leverage. Civil citations tied to mandatory health assessments, conditional relief of fines upon attending intake, linkage to same-day buprenorphine or methadone, peer navigators who escort people from citation to clinic, and housing first slots contingent on engagement with care plans, but never contingent on abstinence. The stick isn't jail, it's escalating contact with a system that removes friction to treatment while preserving dignity. Noah, civil tools can help, but outcomes hinge on supply dynamics. We're in a synthetic era. Fentanyl and its analogs are cheap, potent, and easy to transport in tiny quantities. Even if you destigmatize user contact, the drug mix is so lethal that missteps are often fatal. Decriminalization does nothing to clean the supply. Without aggressive supply-side tactics, precursor controls, interdiction of pill presses, and consequences for wholesale distribution, you're asking public health to mop the ocean. Evan, no one is proposing to disarm against traffickers. Decriminalization preserves penalties for distribution. It just stops confusing the patient with the pusher. Meanwhile, health strategies, drug checking, fentanyl test strips, supervised consumption, naloxone saturation, and safe supply pilots where legally feasible, do reduce the lethality of the current supply. When outreach can say, "Come in, you won't be arrested," you get honest disclosure about what people are using, and you can intervene earlier. NOAA, safe supply pilots are politically toxic and legally constrained in many jurisdictions. Supervised consumption sites face lawsuits. Drug checking helps, but it's not a force field against analogs. And communities push back hard if open use and litter increase. If the public perceives decriminalization as permissiveness, you lose the coalition needed to fund the health bundle. I'd rather sequence reforms, expand treatment and housing first, enforce order in public spaces consistently, then reduce penalties. Evan, public order and decriminalization aren't mutually exclusive. You can prohibit public consumption in sensitive areas, enforce time and place rules, and still not criminalize mere possession. Train officers to channel encounters toward health responses, county response teams, transport to clinics, issuing civil citations that trigger same-day care. That lowers visible disorder and still breaks the arrest-jail relapse loop. NOAA, let's talk equity. Drug laws have hit minority communities disproportionately. Decriminalization can reduce that harm, if implemented evenly. But if all we do is stop arrests in downtowns while leaving supply chains untouched in the same neighborhoods, we risk a two-tier system. Visible users get services, residents near open-air markets still live with violence and trafficking. Equity requires aggressive action up the chain, targeted enforcement on violent suppliers, alongside user-focused health responses. Evan, completely. A rational model looks like this. 1. Decriminalize possession. 2. Concentrate enforcement on violent actors, guns, and trafficking nodes. 3. Scale medication-assisted treatment with same-day starts. 4. Expand low-barrier housing with on-site clinical care. 5. Saturate naloxone and drug checking. 6. Run co-response teams for hotspot outreach. 7. Enforce public use rules consistently but non-carcerally. And 8. Publish monthly metrics. That mix reduces deaths, crime, and disparities better than the status quo. NOAA, fine as a blueprint, but I want guardrails. First, automatic budget triggers. As overdoses rise or wait times lengthen, the health budget auto-increases, not subject to annual politics. Second, accountability. If a city decriminalizes without meeting service benchmarks, state funding pauses until remedied. Third, street order. Civil citations escalate to mandatory administrative hearings if ignored, with pathways to wipe penalties through treatment participation. Evan, and to maintain community trust, add transparency, public dashboards on calls for service, overdose responses, clinic throughput, and sanitation metrics by neighborhood. Publish audits of civil citation follow-up. Create feedback channels so residents can flag hotspots and see response times. Decriminalization should feel like a smarter, not softer, system. NOAA, what about youth? Decriminalization risks signaling safety to teens. We need strong youth-specific measures. School-based screening, family-centered interventions, and social media campaigns that are brutally honest about fentanyl, xylazine, and counterfeit pills. Age-appropriate penalties should be restorative, education, counseling, and mentorship, never criminalization. Evan, agreed, plus a primary care strategy, universal screening in pediatric and adult clinics, default access to medication-assisted treatment, and warm handoffs. Payment systems should reimburse outreach and retention, not just intake. The point is to make the healthy choice the easiest choice. NOAA, let's address the fear that decriminalization invites people to a city. Migration is driven by jobs, family, and housing costs more than drug policy. But perceptions matter. If residents see encampments and open use, reform loses legitimacy. That means pairing decriminalization with serious street management, sanctioned camping alternatives, rapid rehousing, daytime engagement sites, trash pickup, and clear rules against public consumption, enforced with civil tools and service offers. Evan, which is why cross-department orchestration is essential. Health, housing, sanitation, and policing moving in lockstep. Fragmented agencies create the whack-a-mole you're worried about. A single accountable command, publishing goals and outcomes, keeps the system from drifting. Noah, last point, we should be honest about transitional risk. Overdose trends may not improve immediately, street scenes may shift before stabilizing. Political patience is thin. To preserve support, set interim milestones, treatment starts per month, drop in overdose mortality in target cohorts, reductions in 911 calls at hotspots, and celebrate progress publicly. If goals aren't met, be ready to pivot. Evan, that's fair. Decriminalization isn't a moral end state, it's a tactic to reduce harm more effectively than criminalization. If the data show a lever isn't working, change it. But clinging to a punitive model that hasn't delivered safer streets or healthier people is the real policy inertia. Noah, then here's where I land. I'm not against decriminalization, I'm against performative decriminalization. Do it with capacity, metrics, public order rules, and supply-side focus, and I'll support it. Do it as a slogan without infrastructure, and I'll oppose it. Evan. And I'll say this, treat people with addiction as patients, reserve punishment for those who prey on them, measure relentlessly, and align incentives so help finds people faster than harm does. Under those conditions, decriminalization isn't permissive, it's pragmatic. Noah. We agree on more than we disagree: health first, order maintained, traffickers targeted, and transparent accountability. If that's the package on the table, we have a deal. Evan, then let's build that package, and let the outcomes, not the rhetoric, decide the rest.